okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
All right, you're live now.
All right, thank you for joining us again for the AP Laser Workshop. Thank you for joining Alicia, myself, Aaron. Sorry for the delay. We actually just spent the last 8 minutes talking to ourselves. We thought we were live and something was hung up and the signal wasn't going out, but pretty sure we got everything straightened out now. So I'll go right back in. I'm going to have to recap everything I just said, but it's always a little adventure sometimes around here at AP Laser. So what we're focusing on today is leather, okay? Specifically leather and leatherette, which you will get from JDS. Now, when you get into the world of leather, there's a lot of different leather products. There's going to be, like I said, leatherette I mentioned from JDS, which makes name tags, makes coasters, and all kinds of stuff that you can do. If you were to get some name tags from them and then put them on, it allows you to do on-demand name tags for your businesses. So your customers come in, it gives you a really well put together professional look, and it's something unique that people generally don't see other places. Mm-hmm. We also are going to work on doing some cut-out leather blanks, some cut-out leather earrings, and some other leather materials. Now, when we talk about leathers, there's a lot of different things to consider when you're working with leather. There's different weights, different moistures, different values, really. I mean, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I have this $1,000 piece of leather, can you laser engrave on it for me? Like, I might not. I don't know. Depends on what kind of risk they're willing to take. Okay? I also want to mention specifically, we're not talking about fake leather or pleather or fake leather products, because those often contain materials and chemicals that would create an off-gas. Number one, most of the time, those fake leather is just like a vinyl covered thing that once you get through like the 16th of the layer of the top surface, it's just gonna be exposed fabric underneath, and it never looks good. But more importantly, it can be detrimental to your health, because a lot of those materials will release hydrogen chloride and other off-gases similar to that, which are toxic, highly toxic to the human respiratory system. But also the hydrogen chloride, when it pulls across your machine, the stainless steel, it will oxidize and corrode non-ferrous and otherwise non-corrosive metals. So your stainless steel rails can quickly become rather rusted, and that's not going to be covered under warranty. Nobody wants to pay for a big repair chunk of change out of pocket. I don't want to go too far down that road, but the most important thing to remember is your health. And even if you think that somebody says, hey, I can give you a filtration system that's made for PVC and vinyl and hydrogen chloride, it still has to come across your machine. So even if you're getting all the gas out and you're not breathing in any of the gas that could potentially kill you, it will without doubt kill your machine and make it unusable very quickly. So try to stay away from that stuff if you don't know what you're dealing with. But I come back to leather. When we're working with regular leather, the only thing we have to worry about is an odor, not a gas, but leather will sometimes stink, kind of like acrylic and other materials we work with a laser. But it's the end results are usually well worth it. And with the proper filtration and fume extraction system, it's really not an unbearable scent when you get into it. I know today we're going to focus on a couple things with cutting leather and engraving the leatherette. I know that, the leatherette, again, is a leather material that is enhanced. I'm not sure what process is used to do it, but from JDS and other vendors that have this type of product, where it's made to create a certain color sheen after you engrave into it. So you'll get like, they'll have different colors. They'll have silvers, golds, grays, and some other colors that you can look into all the stuff they have available on their website. I know Alicia has a couple things set up in the laser that we're going to start with. Alicia, can you tell me what we're going to go ahead and get going?
Yeah, so if you cut back to the machine here, you can see I've got this leather laid out on the bed, and I've got that ready to go. I've done a few tests, so I know that I'm good to go. And I've kind of taped that down in the machine just because from my testing, I've noticed that it likes to kind of blow up a little bit as the air assist goes over it. So either you could use masking tape, duct tape, or even heavy magnets just to kind of flatten that material out and get it secure in there. But if we come back to my computer here, I've got a couple simple earring designs ready to go. And these are just super simple. You can see, not a very complicated design, and it's actually something I was able to create completely in the Lightburn software, which I thought was a fun experiment to try. They've got some good features in here. Obviously, if you want to do something super complex, you can use Corel or Photoshop or whatever other design / illustration software you want to use and kind of import it into here. But for something super simple like this, I just decided to go crazy within the program itself.
Alicia, sorry to interrupt you here, but you've heard me say it probably every live since I started doing these. If you haven't already invested in Lightburn, it is well worth the investment. The tools and the ease, the ease of functionality it gives you, it's well worth the investment.
I agree. There's a lot you can do in here, and like I said, this I was able just to create in here, so it was, ready to go right away. And I can kind of show you something really simple that you can do in here. If we just take like the little circle tool off the side here, you can do square, make it whatever shape you want there, but if we just take something super simple like that, you can kind of duplicate that there. Make sure I go back up to the pointer here so I'm not drawing another circle. If we kind of take these so they're overlapping a little bit, make sure we select both of those so they're both highlighted. And if we go over to the tab here, we've got different Boolean functions that are going to join the shapes together. If we do this top one here, it's going to weld those selected shapes and it's going to get rid of that intersection. So this is all just kind of one shape, like you can see over here that I've already done there. And this shape I've done a little playing with the nodes. So if we select this guy and go to the node tool, you can see we've got all these different little nodes here, and you can just kind of grab and play with those and shape your earring to whatever shape you want. And then something super simple to make these bend a little easier and just to give it a little bit of a design. I also just went ahead and made these little creases that are going to get cut out, and that's just going to give it a little more flair. It's a little more exciting. The leather will bend, but it helps it bend a little more with those notches cut out, and it gives it a little bit better of a design rather than just a circle sitting on your ear. So I've got this ready to go. I've got this over here in the mode. I've got that selected to line so that we can make sure it's going to cut through. And I can go ahead and send that over to the machine. I'm just going to label this whatever I want it to be. I'll just name it earring. I got that set. And then if I go back over to the machine here, I'm just going to make sure I'm lined up where I want to be. Make sure I'm level there. Should be good. I'm going to go ahead and set the origin, make sure that's good. We can go into the file, find my earring, and we can frame that, just make sure it's going to fit okay on there. Looks like it should be good. Close the top up. We can go ahead and turn that BOFA on so we have a little filtration going. And we can go ahead and press the start button. And this is going to run super quick. It's about a 5-minute cut. And once we're done, we'll have a little set of earrings ready to go. And really simple to complete the earrings. You can just buy a little jewelry set off of like Amazon. I got one for like $2. It's got little earring hooks and everything, and it'll get that finished design for you. And they're pretty much ready to go right out of the machine. I like to wash them off so they don't have that residue on them. But it's a pretty simple way just to make some cute earrings. Throw them in a shop and you got a little bit of profit going.
Yeah, it's Alicia, a little bit of profit going. Like Frank says, I was talking about the scent earlier, it smells like money. Thank you for joining us again today, Frank. As usual, Frank from Pops Custom Science and Laser Designs LLC. If you get a chance to go check out his website, he's a lot of fun to hang out with too. More importantly, if you haven't been to one of our laser cons, you got to find one that Frank's coming to, because he's just a hoot to hang out with. We also have a question: Are we masking the leather? And with this leather, no, we are not masking it. And the question is a fairly valid one. In some materials, we work with masking to reduce some overburns and stuff like that. I personally have not really found a product effective in masking the leather. I've just found leathers that are worth cutting and leathers that aren't so good to cut. I've found very few that are not so good to cut. It's always a matter of finding the right speed and power balance. When it comes to engraving, it all comes down to different levels of thickness and stuff like that. So if you're trying to go deeper into leather, I often prefer to run multiple passes other than hitting it with a lot of power at one time, because the harder you hit it at one time, the more it burns. But yeah, it gets you as deep as you want to go, but if you go multiple passes and take a little bit off at a time, it doesn't create as much of an overburn or burning process. So, and the laser's accurate enough that you can set up to do multiple passes, and it's going to be just fine. It's going to be great results that way. Again, play with some things when you get, if you have some scrap leather that you can get your hands on, or even inexpensive leather just to play with, go ahead and play with it a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely recommend always, like Aaron said, every piece of leather is going to react differently to the machine. So definitely make sure you've got a small test design ready to go, whether it's cutting or engraving, just so you know the results you're going to get. I've had several pieces of scrap, and I think my design's ready to go, and it works on one, and it completely looks awful on the other one, and you just got to kind of round up from there and see what works and go. Trial and error always.
Kevin White asked, what type of leather, tanned or dyed? I actually think we have a mix of both today.
Yeah.
Of course, anytime you're working with tan leather, I think it's important to mention that you want to make sure you know the tanning process that went into it. Because I know some people use some volatile stuff to tan leather, which really drives me nuts. But some people say it's easier to do it that way, but that's not the leather I buy. If the leather is tanned traditionally, you should, it will be, it will also give great laser effects. Obviously, dyed leather will create different results, so depending on what kind of dyes go into it. So it's kind of a mixed bag as to what results you're going to get, whether it's tanned or dyed. And even when it's dyed, you know, how it's dyed from one leather producer, I can't remember what we're going to call them. One source to another source might be slightly different. So,
Right.
But it's still going to give usually very favorable results.
My preference is always just to do the raw leather. I think that gives a really cool effect when you're engraving. You get that nice deep burn. But there's all sorts of different kinds of leather that you can get that is safe to engrave, safe to cut, and will give you different results depending on what you're looking for. So we can cut back to the machine. It looks like that guy finished up, and we can, we actually have a finished set already done on our display table. We'll grab these guys out real quick. But you can kind of see what they're going to look like already on that table there. They're really just super simple shapes. They look really good when they're finished, and they're super simple to put back together. All you do is just kind of fold it up and you're good. Add a little earring hook on there and you're set. So should be good to go. Post cleanup, you know, just kind of grabbing that little scrap out of there real quick there. And then I'm actually going to put this guy back down, and we're going to run that hat tag real quick. There's lots of different things you can make on here. You know, the possibilities are endless. Whatever, whatever you're into. Move this guy back down. Origin. All right. So we go back to my computer here. Pull up another super simple, easy to make design here. Just close that guy. And I've got this little hat tag made with our logo on it. So this was just something really super easy that I designed in my illustration software. And then I imported it into Lightburn so it was ready to go. And then I just kind of outlined that as well to have this cutout shape around it. You can make that whatever shape you want. If it's a square, you could really easily add a square around there. You could put a circle on there. You know, it's really up to you. But we've got everything set in here and ready to go. We've got that engraving ready. I like to import my images at the 300 DPI just so I have that super crisp quality that I have in my illustration, just making sure that I have that already. And we can send that over. Just gonna name it hat tag, something really simple. Get that on the machine. And we come back over here. I'm gonna make sure that I'm still level on the bed. Looks good. Open up that file.
Measure twice, cut once. The one time you don't check your focus, you're gonna be out of focus. Promise you. You're gonna go 100, and you're gonna check the focus on everyone, and then you're gonna get to 101, and you'll be like, oh, it's still good. And then you're not gonna check the focus, and it's gonna be out of focus.
And no matter if I think there's enough space or not, I'm gonna frame that image in the machine and make sure that's going exactly where I want it.
Yes, 100% frame, because you also don't know if you made a mistake or not.
Especially if you're doing user origin, which I always do, just so I know exactly where it's going. You could have put it to a completely different corner than you thought, and all of a sudden it's going way off your material. So it's always worth checking. Takes 2 seconds, and you know that it's gonna be where you want it to be. So we go ahead and turn that BOFA back on, and then we're just gonna hit start, and it's gonna do that engraving first, and then it'll cut it out when it's ready to go. And as we said, I did a lot of tests to make sure I was getting what I wanted out of this material. We had a lot of different scraps. This is the one that I thought turned out the best, and I had to play around with the settings to make sure that it was getting deep but not burnt, and it was getting all of the details that I wanted in there.
So Frank asks, how large are these that are being cut? The camera distorts its appearance. Well, the only way I can really show you the scale was by maybe putting them on. So here's a shot of one of the earrings after it's folded up. It's, you see there. Okay, let it back up a little bit so we can.
I did play around with the scale on those as well. Again, trial and error always. I found that I had them about 4 inches wide, I think, so that they were about 2 inches long on either side, so it's about 2 inches once you fold it up. But, you know, you play around. If you like big earrings, make them bigger. If you like them smaller, make them smaller.
Another reason that I wanted to take those off is I wanted to, kind of on a side note, is I wanted to show that Alicia also made her own packaging for these. So if you look back on our display table there is a wood laminate that's got a sticky back laminate, but it's something that you can use, something small like that. You can make your own design and put the holes in it for the earring hanger. It's right there in the middle of the hat. Okay, so you'll see that it's got, you know, you hang those up, so you make your own display cases, your own branding, your own logos, your own artwork, your own graphics when making your products and stuff like this. I mean, if any of you have a teenage daughter, or if any of you have teenagers that have their ears pierced in general, they constantly want new earrings. So it's a thing. Sometimes grown men want more earrings too.
There's lots of different things you can do on these machines. I find something new to do every day. So, and I will say it's a little sneak peek into next week where we're going to be doing more jewelry designs for you. And I've got different displays you can use, the packaging like you showed today, just so you can brand it. And then when you have your own little storefront somewhere or your own Etsy shop and you're taking those product photos, you can show that this is your design through and through. It just kind of elevates things a little bit, and it's super easy to do. I'll go over that more next week, but it really kind of elevates what you're doing a bit.
Frank also asked, does the honeycomb flash back and discolor the leather like it does with wood? Well, it does. It can, and it does sometimes, just like wood, sometimes more than not. Most of the time when you're working with leather, a lot of times the back, it's very rare that you're going to find both sides of the leather that are finished anyways. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be your smooth side, and then you're going to be the unfinished back rough side. So it's very rare that I can think of an application where you'll need both sides to be clean and look clean. But if you're cutting through it, especially if you're doing text or something like that, you're not going to want to see the text backwards anyways. So, or the mirrored image. So a lot of times it's one of those things that's very easy to work with and deal with, because if you're cutting the leather, that's going to have some kind of backing on it, whether it's going to be a hat, a jacket, a cool denim jean jacket like we had back in the 80s and 90s. Those are still popular, right? And then, or it might go into a frame. It might go onto a piece that's gonna be backed on a wall or wrapped around something. So it's one of those things that is a little more tolerable to deal with if you're getting flashback from the honeycomb. What he asks, is the air assist on for the engraving as well? Always, 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 always. And always use your air assist when laser engraving. I will tell you, I really can't think of a scenario where I don't want to use air assist. The air assist is doing a couple things. The air assist is, number one, it's your first line of defense for your lens. All right, if you are doing something like leather or wood or anything else that puts off any kind of resin or particulate or fume that needs exhausting, that's also going to have a certain amount of solids in the fume that will collect on the lens. If that collects on the lens and you're still lasering through it, it's going to create what's called a hot spot. That hot spot is going to cause permanent damage to that lens, and it's going to cost you it's going to be the cost of a lens and shipping to get that lens replaced. The air assist also assists in the engravings and cuttings. Okay. The added oxygen is being pumped through in the ambient air just really helps push that. It really helps with a cleaner engraving, a cleaner reaction with the laser, and it acts as an additional fuel for the exchange of energy to happen that's happening from the laser to the material and the absorption of energy. That's actually a really great question, Woody.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a time that I've ever even thought about turning it off, so it's a good safety feature. Just keep it on. I've got a little note on my desktop that just reminds me, make sure your air assist is on. So it's there for a reason. We do have that hat tag finished up in here, and again, this is something that I did prior to, just so we had that sample ready to go on the sample table there. But it's just super simple. It got that nice deep engraving, and then you can just stick it on your hat. It'll be ready to go when you need it. You know, I've used like liquid stitch. You can glue it to the hat, or you can just stitch it in there yourself. Or if you're just putting it on display as a test, just tape it on there for a picture. But there's lots of different uses, and I think they look really nice when they're done. So. Get that out of the way. see here. So something else that I think is really fun are those JDS coasters with the different colors. The leatherettes that show through those different colors there. As you can see on the table there, we have the kind of silver backed ones. So you kind of engrave away that top layer and there's this nice shiny underneath. So if I come back to my laptop here, I can pull up that design I have. Super simple, and this was something I've had to do a lot of trial and error with to make sure there wasn't any burning, and I was getting that silver that I wanted and not just like a black blob. I've actually gone into the user group a lot for advice. I think it's super helpful to get on that Facebook user group. Everybody's sharing their different trials and errors. It's a great place to learn. Me being rather new here, it's a great place for me to learn. So I've got that design ready to go, and again, this was just something, you know, I made in my illustration software. Got our nice little logo on there, ready to go. And the settings that I ended up finding that worked best for me was a speed of 12 and a power of 14. This may differ for different pieces of leatherette, but this is what I found worked really well for these silver JDS leatherette coasters. So we have that good to go. We have that in fill, so we know it's going to engrave and it's not going to cut. We can send that over. I'm just going to name it coaster. Get that on the machine, and then we can come over here, move this guy up, and kind of get this guy in here. And actually, something I did forget to check was that origin. With these coasters, I like to make sure that I have it in the center, just kind of to center my design in the coaster. So I'm going to go ahead and resend that with that centered origin so that we're going to get that nice and even on the finished coaster. I also like to just kind of take a little bit of tape, kind of curl that up just so it's a little sticky guy. Place that right on the back of the coaster so that it stays put. I don't think you're going to have it fly away while it's in there, but it's just a little safety feature that I like to use so it's not going to run tail while it's going. And again, we want to make sure that this is even, especially we want to refocus, especially since this is a different material. It's got a little bit different thickness, so we're going to go ahead and readjust the focus there. Should be good. And then I want to find kind of the center there. Hit the origin, open up that file, and again, we're going to frame it. We're going to make sure that's going where I want it to go. Turn the speed down a little bit. It's a little easier to see as well. So we can flip that over, hit origin, hit the frame, and it's going. You see it's kind of in the middle there. Should be good. Great. Put that top back down, turn the BOPA on, and hit start. And then that's just going to go. And again, that's going to kind of take off the top layer, and it's going to have that nice silver underneath. It just makes for a really striking design, I think, especially if you have something more complex like I do. It's going to really kind of shine through on there, as you can see there on our table.
Alicia, we have a couple questions. We have one, how do you clean the leather residue?
For me, it depends, again, on the different types of leather. I've found just simple, if you're just doing soap and water, that's worked for me so far. Did you have any suggestions with a little more experience, though?
Yes, again, soap and water, it works for our hands, right? Works for our hands. If you use soap, you always make sure you don't use soap that's going to be dyed soap.
Right.
But soap and water works, but I will also use leather conditioners or saddle soap. stuff made specifically for leather and leather cleaning. There's plenty of products out there. Those usually work really well at getting the job done. And it also helps add some moisture back into the leather, which is gonna, leather is I explained this to my girls. I coach travel softball, and their gloves and their mitts. The leather is a dying product. Okay, we take hide, mostly bovine or cow hide, and we turn it into leather and leather products. That leather, as soon as it's prepared, has started a continual drying motion. All right, what we try to produce leather with a certain moisture level to give it some viability for the long term. But as time goes on, if leather goes unmoisturized or untreated, just like your skin, it's going to dry out. But more so, there's nothing giving any other natural form of moisture to the leather. So that's still something that over time you're still going to want to use some kind of leather conditioner or moisturizer to preserve the life of the leather, whether it be your leather boots, your leather jacket, your leather wallet, your leather glove, your leather earrings, your whatever it may be. Leather is made, and I'm not saying it's going to be something that needs to be done in a couple years. In fact, it might be something that needs to be done once every few years. But either way, I'll digress back to cleaning it. It's also good for cleaning the leather and getting some of that stuff, the overburden stuff out of it, or even just blending it in like you would do with your makeup. Not that I wear makeup, just earrings. But another question is, did you use Illustrator for, Evelyn Vasquez asked, did you use Illustrator for the entire design or Lightburn for some of it?
So for the more complex design like I did for this coaster, I actually did this in my own illustration software. Well, not my own, I didn't make it. I use Procreate on my iPad actually, and I just kind of lay out what I want, and then I export that as a high-res PNG, and then I kind of import it into here. This one I was able to trace in Lightburn to get kind of the outlines that I wanted a little more, but just importing, you can illustrate it in whatever software you prefer to use. You could use Illustrator, you could use Photoshop, you could use Corel, you could use, whatever you prefer to use, and just kind of import that image into Lightburn or whatever software you're using to communicate with the laser, and it'll be ready to go. So it's really up to you and what you're using personally. It can be anything. Raymond Standing asks, what type material is the silver square? Well, that is, as we mentioned in the beginning, it is called a product called Leatherette from JDS Industries. I just shared a link in the chat. Okay, the Leatherette, it comes in many different products. They have a lot of different variations of the Leatherette, whether it be a coaster or a name tag or a keychain. There's a lot of different options to choose from when you go to JDS Industries. If you haven't checked out their product, are there different speed and powers that Kevin White asked? Does different color Leatherette have different settings? Yes and no. It's another one of those things that when you buy them, you want to, usually if you find a setting for one, it's probably going to work kind of across the board. But you might find, as with anything else, that there might be a slightly higher or lower power that you prefer for a certain color over the other colors. I've done it where I've had some multiple colors where I've found that a half a watt power less made a difference. Mm-hmm. Now when I say that, when I tell people fine tuning your speed and power, the more you do this, the more you really want to get down to fine tuning, okay? We're not limited to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 whole numbers, okay? I've done things where 28.5 power was just right, but 29 power was too much, and 28 power was too little. So sometimes you might get to where you're doing a 28.5, a 28.75. I do it just to have fun, and it drives my wife bat crap crazy because I'll plug in the machines like, well, you set that to a 32.96 for me.
Like, what does that mean? It's like, that's just the power I need. So it doesn't make any sense. It says it's not supposed to. Really, that particular doesn't matter, but you can go that detailed in your speed and power settings. But I usually stick to half numbers really when I'm getting very fine-tuned, especially working with certain things like leatherettes and stuff, that I might find that, again, that a 22.5 or a 24.5 is just right. 24 seemed like it was too much. Well, when I did 23, it was not enough. So what do? Go in the middle of that. Remember, you can use decimal points on your speeds and your powers. There's some things we cut at a 0.05 speed or slower. It's really tough to watch, but it's slow. So don't keep yourself contained in a box when we're working with these different speed and power settings and stuff.
It's really just always have a piece of scrap, buy one extra coaster, and use that coaster for multiple tests, do the square test where you're doing different, just little squares with different powers to see what you like, or put a little tiny design in there so that you're getting those multiple tests and you can find what you want and what works best for you. So everything is different, so and I do think we've got that coaster finished up. Again, these are super simple and quick to do. Once your design is good, you just plop it in there and let it go. So pull that guy out. Who's this guy? And it's good to go. I mean, it looks just like it does on the table there. So again, I found what worked for me, and I'm able to do multiples of that same material with it. I'd say it probably is pretty consistent again with all the JDS coasters. They're probably going to use about the same, but I'd still buy a test if you're going to change to like the gold one instead of the silver, just so you know for sure, because it could be different.
Frank says, JDS has recommended settings for their items, and I find them pretty accurate for my SN1812. Frank is 100% correct. I have found, in my experience, that is the same, that what I found, my speed and power with the 1812 or 40 watt machines are pretty much dead on for what they recommend. Now, that doesn't help us when we get into 100 watt, because they don't always have 100 watt, 80 watt, 60 watt recommendations. So this is when we have to start doing a little bit of math, okay? So what we basically have to do is, if say JDS recommends a certain millimeter speed, you might have to convert that millimeters over into inches, which I'll get into the whole, I'm not gonna get into the whole formula, the whole calculation, 25.4 millimeters equals 1 inch, blah, 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 and you figure it out. Just plug in how many millimeters to inches in Google, and that tells you the answer really fast, okay? But we might also have to calculate our percentage of power, all right? So if they're telling you, a lot of times JDS will tell you that they recommend this at 60% power. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to figure out what 60% of 40 watts is, okay? And then you'll take that number, which is what? 28-ish or something. Either way, you take that number and you say, okay, that is this many watts of power, so how do I get to that many watts of power with my 100 watt? Well, the 100 watt, it's easy. You just plug in 28 and you're good, right? It's exactly what it is. One power is 1% and up to 100. 24, sorry. So yes, sorry, 60%, yeah. Sorry, my tech guy in the back, my producer just told me that the percentage of the 40 watt was 24. So you would just say 24% of 100 is 24. That's how I get 24 watts, whatever. So you put in 24 power. But if you're doing it for a 60 watt or an 80 watt, now you have to say, well, let me do the math here. What is 24 divided by 80, blah, blah, blah. You figure out the percentage between the two, whatever. Then that's how you plug it in. It's really a simple math formula if you want to get more specific with the power, but that's usually the easiest way to go. If you're going 60 watt, if you have a 60 watt machine and a 2616, then you're working with and you need to get 24 watts, you know that 50% of 60 is going to be 30, So 24 watts is going to be somewhere close to that number, so you can just fudge a number down and say 40 if you don't really want to break the math out. But either way, it's easier just to do a little bit of math, and I know JDS is constantly working on getting updated speed and powers on their website. And hey, if you have questions and you want to see more 100% or more speed and power suggestions for your size of laser, send a message to JDS. Say, hey, can you guys post these speed and power settings for your materials for this size of laser, for this type of laser? There, JDS controls JDS websites. And always just a good old trial and error will be working. We'll be doing a segment on engraving clothing.
Yeah, why not?
Yes, we will be. We're going to be looking at doing a few things coming up. We have done a few things. We did some denim not too long ago. When you say clothing, can you get kind of specific with me? What kind of clothing you're looking for, Frank? I'm also looking at doing some other stuff. We have we will keep posting stuff on our YouTube channel and our Facebook. As always, I forgot to mention, make sure you click that like button and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. If you have subscribed, please go ahead and click the like button again anyways. That helps us get more followers, if you will, and more exposure on YouTube to get better content, to help us get better content out to you. One thing I'm also going to be looking at doing that we're going to talk about in our next meeting for an upcoming is I'm toying with the idea, and let me know if you guys would like the idea, an instructional on how to network your AP laser with both an Ethernet cable and also possibly making it wireless so you don't have to be stuck directly to your laser. So if that's something you might be interested in seeing, please go ahead and post something on our Facebook user group and say, hey, how about you guys doing Facebook or YouTube Live on how to network your machine for us. And I'm kind of pushing to try to see if they'll let me do that for you guys. Quilts. Frank wants to see quilts, and he just says yes. He wants to see the networking. We all want to see the networking. I know it.
I want
Deep down
to see
inside, we all want to see the networking, and I've done it a bunch of times. So it's a lot of fun. We'll have a lot of fun with that one. When we get around to doing it, we'll keep posting. We'll let you know. And as always, like I said, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and click subscribe so you don't forget us.
I will say your suggestions definitely help. I'm still learning how to do lots of different things on these machines. So getting your ideas helps push my work, helps push different projects we put out, different samples we can show you, different settings. What I want to make, what you want to see. So definitely send those ideas over.
As usual, if you're watching this now and you have a question that, if you're watching this after, sorry, if you're not watching this live, or if you think of a question afterwards that you want to ask, don't comment on the post after the live. Make sure you go to send an email to aplaserlive@aplaser.com, and we will answer your questions for you. That's the URL's up there. The email address is up there on the screen. It's aplaserlive@aplaser.com for our AP Laser Workshop email, and one of our team will be able to quickly answer your questions or entertain your suggestions to something you want to see, whether it's how to do on material or how to do on the machine. Maybe you want some more explanation on doing some stuff on working with the machine in general, specifically maintenance or anything like that. There's going to be a lot of different things we can get into, whether it be material workshops or how-to workshops or maintenance workshops, preventive maintenance workshops. And Alicia says she's still learning, but she's getting really close to where she's going to be able to teach me.
I hope.
Now, my wife still says I'm unteachable. So old dogs and new tricks and stuff, or whatever. Thank you, Frank. We have just a couple minutes here. If anybody has any questions, I want to go ahead and post them real quick. I want to reiterate again, when we get into doing leather, if you didn't hear me in the beginning, we want to stay away from the fake leathers. This is not going to give you a good result, one. And two, it's potentially dangerous to your machine and more importantly, your health. because of the chemicals and stuff they have to use to make that stuff. It's really just vinyl on cloth backing is all it is anyways, most of the time. I'm not saying there aren't fake leathers that are made for lasering, but make sure you find those products specifically and that you know that this is made for lasering. And if any of you have ever ripped a fake leather seat or a fake leather whatever, cushioning, whatever it may be, you'll know that it's a very thin layer of fake leather or pleather backed by some gridded fabric and adhesive and stuff, and it won't look good once you get through the top layer. And then you discolor it in a way where it looks burnt. It just looks burnt and bad, not crisp and clean. We want crisp and clean. As always, thank you guys again for joining us today, all of you. Light burn, if you don't have light burn yet, check with your sales person and see what you can do to get light burn.
I can't recommend it enough. Like I said, with those earrings, I mean, they were super simple. You could have made that elsewhere. But that was something I was able just to do in light burn directly, which was really fun. So,
also, don't forget to click like and subscribe. And we have another one coming up this time next week. What was I'm drawing a blank on our subject there.
we're doing jewelry, so more
Jewelry.
earrings, necklaces, you know.
I'll model all the earrings
fun
I can
stuff.
next week. We're gonna have a lot of fun next week. Oh, our AP Laser web store, I want to reiterate, if you haven't been to that recently, please keep going to our AP Laser web store. If you see something that's out of stock, contact our sales department or our AP Laser technician, our tech team at 844-364-8211, and we can check that stock for you. We are in the process of moving, we are in the process of moving, and it's coming along very good, but because of that, there's going to be some inventory transfers that may make things appear as out of stock on the web store, but are still in stock. So please find us at aplaser.com/shop. Just go to aplaser.com and click on store, and you'll find our web store and all the different materials and stuff we have in there, whether it's blanks or parts or seams or elements, or there's a constantly growing library of stuff on there. Anything else from you, Alicia?
I think that's it until next week. I'll keep you on your toes.
We'll see you all next week. Thank you again.